Well, here we are. It's a nice Saturday morning. The sun is out, and we're just going to go over to the beehive. And before we do that, I just thought I'd show you some of the equipment that we use. So we use a bit of cardboard. We'll cut that up, and that goes in the smoker. Use some dead leaves and things like that just to get some smoke, and we light it with gas. Once the smoke is up and ready, we're ready to enter into the hive. Then we've got a tool which we use to relieve the wood, and also to take the hive apart. And then a brush, a really soft brush. Sometimes we need to brush the bees off if we're collecting the honey. And then you've got your suit and gloves, and that's really all you need to start going into your beehive, and we'll catch up with you once we get there. Here we're lighting the cardboard. Turn it off. So I've gone into the beehives, and I'm just going to show you the queen. The queen's got a little white dot on her, so she's really easy to identify. And so let me just 2 seconds. I'll just lift this brood box up. So there are all the bees, and there you see the queen. The queen has got a longer abdomen than the others. She's got a white spot on her which was put on when she was hatched, so it tells you that she was a queen in 2021, and that's the colour of queens, which is white, and they'll have different colours for different years. So she lay in all the brood in the brood box. The ones that are capped are little bees, not hatched out yet, and as you can see, there's a nice selection. And as you go outside, you'll see a gap, and then you'll see the pollen. So you've got pollen on the outside, and then you've got the young. You can see a tiny sort of grub in there. That's a baby bee waiting to develop. They'll feed it, and then they'll cap it, and then in about 14 days she'll emerge as a baby bee. So there we are. So that's how bees work, and that's the hive there. And yeah, I'll get back to you as soon as I drop the video back off with my son to just stop videoing it. There we are. So the smoke doesn't drive them away. It basically subdues them, and they go into the hive, and it basically interferes with the attack, the attack sort of thing that the bees have if somebody goes into their hive. So if you put smoke in there, some people believe it hides your scent, and also it basically puts them into a place that they think there's a fire in the woods, so that they go into the hive. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the honey is actually in the honeycomb itself. So instead of where they lay the egg, in the same place, instead of laying an egg, they'll build it up with honey. And honey is basically their saliva and pollen and nectar from the plant. Most of it is nectar from the plant, and they mix it with their saliva, which makes honey. They basically then cap the honey, so they have to cap it. And once they cap the honeycomb, then you can harvest it. If you harvest the honey before it's capped, it's got too much water in it. So what the bees do is they fan the honey with their wings to take the moisture out of the honey. And when the honey consistency is correct within the comb, then they cap it with wax. And then at the end of the season, what you do is you take the whole of the frame out, one of the frames, which has got honey in it. And then what you do, you get a sharp, hot knife, and you just slice the top of the honeycomb off, and then you put it into a centrifugal force, you spin it, and all the honey comes out, hits the side, falls down, and then you harvest the honey. There's no, you don't have to do any processing, it's all raw honey. And to do the queen, the cycle of the bees are, the egg is laid, it takes 14 days, and then the bees, once they've hatched out, the bees stay in the hive for 28 days. So they don't fly out, they stay in the hive for 28 days, and their job is to look after the queen, to create wax, to create the hive, and to protect the hive, and basically just look after everybody inside and make sure they feed all the young. So that's the first 28 days. And then the second 28 days, they do their virgin flight, and they fly out and they find their surroundings, and then they fly and they gather nectar and pollen for the next 28 days, and then they die. So they live 56 days in total, from the time they hatch to the time they die, 56 days. And in that time, you can imagine the queen's laid more eggs, they've hatched out in 14 days, and then it's like an ongoing session. The next thing is to do with queen. Queen cells are only laid if the queen feels that the hive is getting too small for her, or there's stresses in the hive, and then she will lay. It's exactly the same egg as all the others, they're all female. She will lay, but she will tell the worker bees to basically feed it on a different food, and if it's fed on a different food, then it develops into a queen cell. Queen cells are brought out, they're about 6-7 times longer and thicker than a normal cell, and they literally at the bottom of the frame, and they stick out about half an inch, and in there is a queen, and they cap it, and they bring out about 5 or 6 queen cells, and then what happens is, literally, once they cap that, and the queens are about to hatch, probably about 4 or 5 days before the queen hatches out, the new queen hatches, then the old queen gets all the worker bees, so it's every bee that's over 28 days, all the worker bees that are over 28 days, they gorge themselves on honey in the hive, and then she leaves with all the worker bees. So every bee that is under 28 days is left in the hive, and all the bees that are over 28 days go with the queen. And then they set up another hive, and that's called a swarm, and the swarm goes, finds somewhere nice, and they'll set up home, and they regurgitate the honey, and that keeps them going then for the next 14 days, while the queen bee lays more eggs straight away, and within 14 days they have hatched, and they start working, looking after everything in the hive, and then within 28 days they're flying, and if you can imagine, the swarm has died off within 28 days, so within 28 days the queen has laid eggs, got a new hive going, and away it goes, and that's how God has created bees. Anyway, any more questions, please ask. Hope that is a simple, really quite straightforward question and answer. The other thing is, just let you know, at the end of September, October, the queen lays what they call the winter brood, and this is the miracle of creation. The winter brood can live for 5 months throughout the winter, so they don't die within 28 days. They live literally the whole of the winter and hibernate, and they're called the winter brood. And you can't see the difference in the bee, but they live for 6 months to keep over the winter, keep the hive alive, and they go out in the spring, collect honey, and literally they live for 28 days once they leave the hive after winter. Now that is the miracle of bees. Okay, God bless you. Bye.